Marlins did sweep the Cubs this weekend. They're 10-0 in one-run games all year long. All 3 games against the Cubbies were one-run games.
You know what's amazing, by the way, because you're talking about the Marlins here, and I know Appel loves when you talk about the Marlins. We're an hour and 8 minutes into the show. We didn't even mention that the Dolphins had an NFL draft over the weekend. I mean, you didn't even mention a single pick, Solana, in the first headlines. And it didn't even register with me till right now because I was like, oh, we're on to the Marlins already. I wonder if we're missing anything else.
We're not worried about fourth-round running backs. We're worried about championships.
How surprised were you that they took a cornerback?
I was very surprised, to be honest.
Me too.
That was mind-blowing.
But if you think about all the attrition they had at that position last year, and, Xavier Howard only has so many years left, not a bad idea to have him learn from Jalen and Xavier for a couple of years. You're going to get Needham back. Kohu seems like he's a player too. You can never have too much cornerback depth.
Hey, Josh, you know what? We're still trying to make up for drafting Noah Igbadam Nagani. That's the problem. You brought up Cater Kohu, and we drafted a guy in the first round, Josh.
I will tell you, it makes sense. Like when you do the postmortem on the draft, you look at it, it makes sense. But when we had gotten to Friday's show, we had thought for 2 weeks leading up, it's going to be offensive linemen. Then on Friday's show, we were like, okay, tight end, because everybody's mock draft has tight end. And then all of a sudden they took a cornerback, and I was like, what is going on here? I was very confused, but it does make sense, especially with what Josh just pointed out.
Well, if you think about it, the top tight ends in the draft were taken before, Michael Mayer, I think, was probably the last. If Michael Mayer was there when they picked, I would assume they would have, went for him. I think there was a lot of injury concern with the Georgia tight end. You should have actually included in your headlines that Mike White got assigned the number 14. That should have been in your headlines too.
Oh.
I'm
Smith, excited about Mike.
Cam Smith, the cornerback, shocker. Running back, Devon. Do you know how to say his last name, Appel? Devon Achani?
I think it's A-Chain.
A-Chain? And then they
I had a mouthful of coffee when Solana went, as if he knew anything Josh was talking about the draft.
He's dropping third-round tight ends. Like,
I'm sorry that I know what I'm talking about. Sue me.
And I'm not sorry that I don't know what I'm talking about. Wide receiver.
It was like the most dismissive. Yeah. I know what was going through Solana's head, which is why did we invite this guy to hang out for the first segment of the 3 o'clock hour?
Yeah. Hankel and writing down names and taking it. Yeah, enough.
David Pasternak.
Who?
Y'all are silly. Y'all are silly.
But isn't the wide receiver Elijah Higgins? Isn't he also kind of like a tight end that they took in the 6th round?
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Yeah,
could be both.
And then they did take an offensive tackle, Ryan Hayes, in the 7th round.
There you go. There's our draft coverage. There's our post-draft Dolphins coverage.
About 2 of them guys are going to make the team. They didn't do much in the draft.
That's what I'm saying. Like I was kind of saying, like facetiously, almost like we haven't talked about the draft, but it's hard when you don't have a first-round pick and you've got 2 professional teams who are just doing unprecedented stuff. Yes, Josh.
Not to do the draft is a terrible experience to watch live. We were at the skills competition for the NHL, and I thought that was difficult to watch. Watching the first round of the draft on TV is miserable, especially when your team doesn't have a pick.
Well, if you don't have a pick.
Yeah,
I actually thought it was exciting. Like watching Anthony Richardson go 4, I thought was exciting. Like I don't watch the entire thing, but I wanted to see where CJ Stroud went and who was picked first. And then Anthony Richardson was a shock to me. But like, I don't mind the draft. If you have a pick, though, that 2 a year, you can't tell me that wasn't some of the most compelling TV you've ever watched.
I have watched Dolphins games with less nerves than I had watching that Tua draft because I at the time was like, please don't draft Herbert. Please don't draft Herbert. It has to be Tua. It has to be. Yeah, I know. It has to. Yeah. It has to be Tua, and it was Tua.
Hawk, how many questions do you think you can get in just about the Dolphins draft picks with Goldie
Should we bring him on as if that's the only reason we're bringing him on? All right, Goldie, we'll start with round 2, and then we'll get to round 3, and then 6 and 7. And
I wonder how
some of the undrafted guys. What do you think of?
Goldie, did you notice the Marlins swept the Cubs?